Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spring 2022 Free Herbalism Project. I'm streaming in from Eugene, Oregon with fresh nettles. And I would like to introduce today, we have our speakers so we're beginning right now at 1 o'clock, and then at 1:15 we'll have live music with the Muddy Souls, and at 1:30 a Fragrant trio with Mimi Hernandez, 2:30 live music with the Muddy Souls, and then 2:45 Dr. Crystal Dawn will speak about the microbiome and how to nourish it, and we'll be closing around 4 o'clock with myself again. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A tool. So depending on what kind of device you're using, either at the bottom of the screen or the top of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A bubble, and you just click on that and you can ask us questions, and we'll be going through and answering some of your questions either in the chat box or live. It's easy for questions to get lost in the chat, and feel free to fill up the chat with your comments and discussions. I've been having a lot of fun watching people stream in, sharing about where you're tuning in from today. And we have people joining us from all over the US and all over the world, really. There's many of us joining from all over, and what an incredible moment to welcome so many of us plant lovers together, sharing space. And you'll notice that your videos and your audio is muted, and just a reminder to please keep yourself muted during the presentation so that we can hear the presenters and the music very clearly. And we are recording the event. It will be published on the Mountain Rose Herbs YouTube channel in a few weeks. And if you are viewing on Facebook or YouTube, we'll do our best to monitor comments and feed the panelists questions. At the end of each of the lecture sections, we'll have about 15 minutes for a Q&A. And again, if you have any questions along the way, either about the content or anything about tech, feel free to drop it in the Q&A, and we'll see if we can get to it. And thank you so much for joining us. Take a moment to get yourself comfortable, get settled. I'm Jiling. I'm your host today, and I'm an acupuncturist, herbalist, and yoga teacher, beginning us off today with Wild Weedy Wonders, 3 easy spring recipes for your wild kitchen. Beginning with a quote from Robin Wall Kimmerer from Braiding Sweetgrass: "Be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before taking. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully and share. Give thanks for what you have been given, and give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever." Beginning with 4 common plant families: the aster family, or the Asteraceae, the mustard family, or the Brassicaceae, the mint family, or the Lamiaceae, and the mallow family, or the Malvaceae. Beginning with our illustrious asters. Flowers of the aster family are in a capitulum, or a composite flower head with disc and ray florets, and an involucre, meaning there's no sepals subtending the petals. There's multiple layers of bracts. The fruits of aster family plants have an achene, that seed-like structure at the bottom, and with pappus often that help them to fly through the air. Properties of many aster family plants range from edible to toxic, including bitter digestives, immunomodulators, aromatic resins, anti-inflammatories, and so much more. Taraxacum officinale, or dandelion, you will find in many places, roadsides and disturbed areas, and perhaps in your own garden. And edible are the roots. In the more colder, wintry areas of the US or other parts of the world, you can find the leaves starting to come out of the ground. And here outside of my window, I can see the flowers already starting to pop up. Also, Artemisia species plants, also known as mugwort, the leaves you can add a little bit into salads or into other preparations that we'll be talking about later. I grew some in my parents' place, and they're waiting for enough leaves to grow so that they can make mochi or mochi. And Achillea millefolium, or yarrow, the leaves and flowers. Right now, you'll see the baby Achillea yarrow starting to come out of the earth, and that's a little bit bitter, helping to stimulate digestion, and really lovely here as we begin our spring. Moving on to brassicas, or the mustard family. Flowers in the mustard family have 4 petals and 4 sepals with 6 tetradynamous stamens. So you have to look really closely to see the stamen, which means that there's 4 long stamen and then 2 short stamen. The fruits either come in the silicle, which is a circular flat kind of fruit, or a silique, which is long. These are the seed structures. Properties of mustard family plants: most species are edible, so really helpful to know about this plant family, often containing acrid sulfur glycosides, helping to stimulate digestion, circulation, and expectoration. A common mustard family plant that you will see in many disturbed areas include brassica species, or commonly known as mustards. And edible are their leaves, flowers, and seeds. So right now you'll see the leaves starting to pop up in Southern California, where I come from. The flowers are already out, and they have a nice pungent flavor, helping to open up the senses. Capsella bursa pastoris, or shepherd's purse, leaves, flowers, and seeds are all edible and very pungent as well. Nasturtium officinale, or watercress, leaves and flowers are delicious, and you will find this plant growing along waterways. Mint family, or the Lamiaceae, leaves are opposite, moving alternately up along often square stalks, and usually very aromatic. Many different helpful mint family plants. Flowers are usually irregular, creating an inflorescence that is a cyme or a spike, so it looks like marshmallows along a stick, with 5 united sepals and 5 united petals and 4 exerted stamen with 2 long and 2 short. So over here you see the image of white sage flowers with very exerted stamen. You can see 2 stamens sticking way out to the side and one pistil coming right out of the center. Properties of mint family plants tend to be rich in volatile oils, such as menthol, and a lovely circulatory stimulant, diaphoretic, expectorant, carminative, and bitter or astringent. Some mint family plants that you will often see include mentha species, mints, and leaves and flowers. Particularly leaves are starting to come up and really lovely chopped up into salads. Salvia species plants, over here, this is Salvia spathacea, our local biggest salvia or sage plant that we have in our Ojai Sespe Wilderness area. Leaves and flowers are delicious and aromatic. Glaucoma heteracea, or ground ivy, leaf and flower, grows in many different yards. And Lamium species, or henbit, leaf and flower, and Prunella vulgaris, or self-heal, leaf and flower. Mallow family, or the Malvaceae, leaves are alternate, pubescent, meaning a little bit furry, mucilaginous, so that when you chew it up, it creates this sticky, demulcent quality inside of your mouth, helping to coat mucous membranes, and oftentimes palmately lobed, looks a little bit like a hand with the veins coming out from the center out to the margins of the leaf. Flowers are funnel shaped, thinking of like hibiscus coming in towards the center with 5 separate petals and numerous stamens that fuse into a central column. And the ovary is superior, creating schizocarps, sometimes called cheeses, as shown really lovely here with cacao seed, a cross section of a cacao seed. You can see the schizocarp really nicely. Properties of mallow family or Malvaceae plants, they often are high in mucilage, pectin, and asparagine, and create a nice external emollient, really soothing for the skin, and internal demulcent, soothing for your internal skin, and soothing also for the GI tract, respiratory system, and urinary tracts. Common Malvaceae family plants that you'll find include Malva species, mallows, leaves, flowers, and roots are all really wonderful. And Alsea rosea, hollyhocks, you will see growing in many gardens as a joyful and gorgeous cultivar. Leaves and flowers are both beautiful and delicious, creating that slimy, sticky quality. And hibiscus species, leaves, and flowers. Hummingbird not included. Some simple wild greens infusions that are so easy to make and yet so nutritious and really lovely here in the springtime include wildflower oil infusions, wildflower vinegar infusions, and wild greens finishing salts. Some basic wild greens foods include salads, in which you can just chop up your wild greens finely and add it to your salad, and wild greens soups, in which you create a soup and you can either pour it onto your wild greens or sprinkle some of your wild greens on top and allow the hot water to just gently blanch your wild greens a little bit, maintaining their spring energy, vitality, and essence. The 3 simple wild greens recipes that we will cover here today include wild greens pesto, wild greens pancake, and wild greens protein scramble. With a pesto, you just take about a cup of wild greens, chop them up, then add garlic, basil, nuts or seeds, olive oil or whatever oil you like, salt, and whatever other spices you might like to add. Throw it all together into a food processor or your blender, such as a Vitamix, or use a mortar and pestle if you like to go traditional. Grind it up, and voila, you have a delicious pesto that you can either eat fresh, put it on as a spread, or throw it into your freezer and have it to enjoy for a long period of time. Just make sure you label it. Wild greens pancake, this is my modified version of Cong You Bing, which is Chinese chive pancake, a delicacy that my mom, hi mom, excels at making. So just taking your wild greens and chopping that up nice and fine. Mix your flour and water together into dough balls. So you create a big dough ball, roll it out into a long skinny dough ball, chop that up into smaller dough balls, let them sit and rise for a little bit, then roll it out. Sprinkle on some salt and whatever other spices you might like to include. Add on a nice layer of your wild greens, maybe adding in some wild chives or fresh chives if those grow around you. Brush with oil and then roll it flat again. Let sit and then coil it up into a fat rope. Coil it into a spiral, then gently roll it out flat, fry it on both sides, and enjoy. Super delicious, one of my favorite things. Wild greens protein scramble, taking wild greens and your protein of choice, be it tofu or eggs or some kind of meat, with your condiments, soy sauce, turmeric or cumin, add that nice golden color, salt, pepper, and some oil. Basically, just drain the tofu if you're using tofu, combine your soy sauce, turmeric, and other spices, season the tofu or other protein, stir fry everything, and then at the end, add your wild greens so that it's cooked just a little bit, again, maintaining that wild green, fresh, wild weedy, wonderful essence of spring, then toss it all together. And some other lovely possibilities to consider with your wild greens in this style of cooking, like with eggs, can be quiche or frittata. The way we eat represents our most profound engagement with the natural world. Daily, our eating turns nature into culture, transforming the body of the world into our bodies, and minds. From Michael Pollan, The Omnivore's Dilemma. And one more Michael Pollan quote: "The shared meal elevates eating from a mechanical process of fueling the body to a ritual of family and community, from the mere animal biology to an act of culture." So I do hope that you share some of this beauty that you are learning and you are creating, and you are coming into relationship with the beauty and the wonder of the wild green magic that surrounds us and invigorates our lives, with all those who you share meals with and all those who you enliven and get to share your life with. And with that, we can share with each other what are some of your favorite recipes to celebrate the abundant and delicious wild greens of spring. Feel free to drop that into the chat box as we prepare to welcome our musical band, the Muddy Souls, who are born out of the belly of the acoustic music scene in Eugene. The Muddy Souls were formed in the fall of 2018. They combine bluegrass and traditional music with original songwriting and lively instrumentals for a memorable show that is sure to get your feet dancing and your face grinning. Let's welcome Jacob Kamara on banjo and guitar, Austin Sloan on mandolin, Paul Carberry on bass, Peter Romanelli on guitar, and Grace Honeywell on fiddle. Thank you.
I'll keep rolling down the road, despite all I've been told, and keep on carrying my load to the unknown. Well, my baby said she's leaving, and I've been sick and I've been grieving, but I know in due time that we'll be fine. Through these troubled times, put your hand in mine, keep the fire burning, and we'll make it through the night. Well, the sun is going down, and it's dark all through town. Keep your head in the sky and feet on the ground. That old wheel keeps on turning while my heart keeps on burning. This old train's rolling on, it won't be long. Through these troubled times, put your hand in mine. Keep the fire burning, get through the night. keep rolling down the road, despite all I've been told. Keep on carrying my load to the unknown. Well, my baby said she's leaving. I've been sick and I've been grieving, but I know in due time that we'll be fine. These troubled times, put your hand in mine. We'll keep the fire burning and we'll make it through the night. Thank you very much, folks. We're the Muddy Souls. Thank you to Mountain Rose Herbs for having us for the free herbalism project. This next song is going to be by Mr. Jacob here to my left, called Old Man Walkin'.
The horizon, I'll be staring at the sun. I'll be thinking about all the different things we've said and done. Just an old man walking,
Just an old man walking,
walking through my life,
walking through my life.
just an old man walking,
Just an old man walking,
walking through the light. When I'm an old man walking down by the shore, thinking about all the people I know. Some of them ain't alive anymore. They're alive in my mind. They're alive in my heart. Thank you very much for the Muddy Souls, and our next song is written by Mr. Austin Sloan over there on the mandolin.
It's a bluebird morning, we're sailing at noon. Calm open water, and we ride under the full moon. Your stars, they guide my way across the sea. I watch that storm brew and the waves come crashing down on me. Through the night, out in the sky, beneath the stars we lie. You give me the strength, love, and air to sail on through the night. You give me the strength, love, and air to sail on through the night. I save the sunsets for the moments with you. You are my ocean, let's set sail into the blue. Just trust the maiden, the future's unclear. My thoughts are swimming, I'm gonna take control of this fear. Through the night, out in the sky, beneath the stars, here we lie. You give me the strength, love, and sail on, to sail on through the night. You give me the strength, love, and sail on, to sail on through the night. Fight the rebels, pirates they seem. They don't have morals, there's a mutiny in our team. It's a dark gray morning, we lost one of our own. I tip my head down and I'll set sail out of the storm. Through the night, out in the sky, beneath the stars, here we lie. You give me the strength, love, and sail on, to sail on through the night. You give me the strength, love, and sail on, to sail on through the night. You give me the strength, love, and sail on, to sail on through the night. strength, love, and sail on, to sail on through the night.
Thank you very much, folks. We'll be right back with a little more for you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much to the Muddy Souls, and welcome to Mimi Prunella Hernandez. So Mima believes strongly that keeping plant wisdom alive is essential and has dedicated her life's work to serving as an advocate for both traditional and professional herbal pathways while building cultural bridges of understanding. Inspired by her Mexican Colombian background and the abuelas in her life, her roots spring from Latinx folk herbal traditions. As a registered herbalist, Mimi has mentored many students of clinical and community herbalism over the years and has worked in nonprofit leadership as the executive director of the American Herbalists Guild and in academia, where she taught undergrad ethnobotany at Frostburg State University. And Mimi is now realizing her dream as a homesteader near Asheville, North Carolina, where she stewards the modest and stunning Ponderland Native Plant Sanctuary. And Mimi will be sharing with us a fragrant trio: lemongrass, lemon verbena, and lemon balm. Welcome, Mimi. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiling. What a wonderful way to ease into this presentation with that beautiful music. Let me get my screen started here. I just want to take a deep breath. This is how I always start my presentations. Before I take off, we have a lot to talk about today. The joy, the healing, the sacred space of lemongrass, lemon verbena, and lemon balm, which is such an enchanting combination. And I want to start with a little story because a lot of this stems from obviously personal experience that I had with this blend of herbs. About 10 years ago, I went to Ecuador with some of beloved herbalists, Rosemary Gladstar and Kat Meyer and Cascade Anderson Geller. And it was a healing journey to visit plants and traditional people. One of the memories that I hold really fondly, and by the way, this is a picture of me in an ancient ruin, a moon temple, which is a pre-Incan ruin, and the moss was actually growing on the temple wall. And part of the reason I took this journey was because I was overcoming some really profound loss and sadness. And I just really needed to focus on healing and just have that guided experience. And in part of this, we went to a sacred cactus ceremony where we met with two indigenous healers. And so during this process, you know, as I'm waiting for my turn, there's several students here involved, maybe 15 or 20 of us. And I'm waiting to have my session individually with the cactus healers. And part of this ritual, I was given a fresh egg, and I was to take that egg and just rub it all over my body while I was in the waiting room and just kind of focus on my healing and what my traumas are and why I'm here and focus on the moment. And I was aware of this practice because my grandmother heals with the egg as well. And the egg not only is a cleansing mechanism, the limpia is what we call it, but it's also a way to diagnose issues of the soul and issues of the body and the health. And so I somewhat knew what was coming, but when it was my turn, the shaman or the indigenous healer broke my egg that had captured all the energy from my body and cracked it in a glass of clear water. And when the egg cracks, it forms a pattern that then is read by a traditional healer. And that traditional healer, uses that pattern to diagnose what's happening. And when I broke the egg into the water, both of them were just like, oh, ay Dios mío, el susto, and just basically saying, oh my gosh. And then they were like, oh, sí. And they looked at each other and they nodded and they're like, pobrecita, está quebrada. And basically what they said is, oh, poor young girl, poor sweetie, she's broken. And they could tell because the yolk in my egg had spilled out. And this was no surprise to me. I was just like, oh, yes, I could have told you that because that's why I'm here. And so then I was given a recipe. They're like, don't worry. We've got the special herbal blend for you. And here's your instructions. For 9 days, we want you to bathe in an infusion of 3 herbs: lemongrass, lemon verbena, and lemon balm. And for 9 days, we want you to drink 3 cups of this infusion of 3 herbs: lemongrass, lemon verbena, and lemon balm. And I did that. And after this trip, after the 9 days, I had to wait till I got home, but I was much refreshed, restored, had a kind of a new outlook on life. And to this day, whenever I start to feel that sense of loss and disconnect with my soul, I go back to the traditional regimen. And so the power of the 3 is important here, because 3 is a sacred number in Latinx culture. 3 is so symbolic of many things. The 3rd dimension, we do things in 3s, so they'll manifest in our physical realm. The 3 is the overcoming of duality, the beginning, the middle, the end, the past, present, the future, the creator, the redeemer, the sustainer, faith, hope, love. So many symbols manifest in the 3. And so what you'll find in a lot of traditional folk practices of Latin America is that if we're using a plant, we'll use 3 leaves, or we'll use 9 leaves, or we'll use 27 leaves, or some ratio of 3 therein, or we'll do it for 3 days, or 6 days, or 9 days. So it's always in 3s is a very common theme that you see, especially with spiritual healing. So I found this interesting because in my study and in the stories that I've heard of the culture of Latin America folk herbalism, is that it really is a blend, much like the Latin American people today. It's a blend of many cultures, including the indigenous, including the Spaniard and European, including the African diaspora, which is so important to the culture. And with the indigenous, of course, there's so many indigenous pre-Columbian traditions, including, and even pre-Mayan, pre-Incan, pre-Azteca. But you'll find that a common belief system in these indigenous cultures is that health and spirit are inseparable. In fact, in the Azteca language, the word for the doctor is tepati, which means sacred medicine, where health and spirit are inseparable. And huehuapatli is the greatest medicine, the concept that the body, the soul, and the emotions weave health together. The Spaniard European also brings an element of consideration to the folk healing practices you see today. We see there the influence of the combination of Greek and Roman medicine based on Galen and Hippocrates, the concept of the humors, the concept that the disease is based on hot and cold and dry and wet. Some of that can be seen to be an influence from the European influence. Also, European influences have an influence of Arabic practices handed down from the Spanish Moors. There we get the concept of the mal ojo, which some of us call the evil eye, but I'll explain more about that in a little bit. Not really evil, but definitely penetrating to the sensitive person. And of course, the African diaspora is a very important influence on folk Latin American herbalism, especially Afro-Caribbean and Afro-Latinx culture, where there was a lot of emphasis on extreme respect for the elders, on a reflection that health is a concept of relationship with our ancestors, that the use of ritual and dancing and singing, a lot of these are contributions from the African diaspora. And so together, they come together to form a folk healing practice, very like a lot of people today refer to as curanderismo, which is the medicine people. If you're a folk medicine practitioner, you might refer to yourself as a curandera or a curandero or a curanderex, which is a definitely coming into the scene. And one of the things to consider with Latin American culture is that it's definitely, their medicine is rooted in a history of trauma. So they have very well observed the impact of both susto, which is a scare or a fright or trauma, and soul loss, as well as a very important concept in folk herbalism in Latin America, which is envidia or envy. The fact that they have this ancestral relation to trauma, which has been induced by colonialism and the imposition of patriarchal systems of religion, has really informed the way they practice and view health and practice folk healing. So susto is a very important concept in curanderismo. In susto, we might liken susto in Western medicine to post-traumatic stress syndrome. We might, I think we've all felt this at some point in our lives, where we do not feel fully present, or we don't feel like ourselves, and we don't feel our spirit, and we have a disconnect with our community, disconnect to our own inside, to our spirit. And things like this can lead to inflammation and high blood pressure and suppressed immunity and skin disorders and weight gain or weight loss and diabetes and so many things that we might also liken to post-traumatic stress. So with a susto or a trauma, our soul disconnects from our body because it's not safe. And so the healer is attempting to reunite the body with the soul. And the trilogy of herbs in lemon balm, lemon verbena, and lemongrass is intended to restore someone with their body and soul and spirit. So that is a very, very important concept in Latin American folk healing. Invidia is very, very present. In fact, many people believe that envidia, so this is envy, that envy can have an impact on your health, that someone's gaze upon your success and someone's maybe judging your success, that can penetrate your body and lead to health concerns. This is very, very integral in Latin American folk practices. And so, and if you think about it historically, In the early 1500s, even Cortés, the conquistador from Spain, wondered if he was dreaming. There was a city of plazas with fountains and architecture and floating gardens. He referred to it as the Venice of America, but so much better because it was clean. Cortés remarks how impressed. There was no chance he would sole his feet walking through the city. There were aqueducts that transported fresh water to town. Human waste was picked up from homes daily. There were public bathrooms. Thousands of workers cleaned the town every day. Azteca were offended by body odor. They used herbal deodorants and breath fresheners. This at a time when many of the great capitals of Europe were infested and waste was still disposed on the street. Clean water was unheard of. The Spanish conquistadors were impressed to be greeted every day with incense. You can only imagine the lush gardens of Huastepec. Some say the first public botanical gardens to exist in the world, 2,000 varieties of plants with pools, fountains, waterfalls, a zoo, a research center for Azteca doctors. Commoners could get free medical service in exchange for reporting back on efficacy. Every family had medicinal gardens in the cities. They had rooftop gardens. And in the 1520s, Cortés reflects decades after the conquest. I could not get enough of it. The variety of trees and the aroma that each one had, of the terraces full of roses and other flowers, the many fruits of the land. And I say again, as I stood there admiring it all, I did not believe that in the world there was any land such as this one. Now all this has fallen, lost, and none of it remains. And the population of just Mexico goes from 8 million to 2 million by the year 1600 due to smallpox. And the church wipes out all traces of what they can be viewed as heathen practices and destroyed every book, every codex, every hieroglyph. So there was a lot of envy, and that envy led to a great deal of destruction. So in Latin American folk culture, they go to a long, there's a lot of protection involved, and these sacred healing baths are a really important part of that protection. So if you feel like your guard has come down, if you feel vulnerable, if you feel like the gaze has been upon you, the G-A-Z-E. I actually, well, that's another story, but so bilis is another concept. So bilis, of course, has to do with rage and anger. And bilis is a concept that comes from the European. The aspect that rage and temper can inflame the liver and cause health concerns. So as we know, the lemon balm, lemon verbena, lemongrass has a grounding effect on our anger. It really calms and soothes and kind of takes things down a notch. And then the concept of the mal ojo is it's a spiritual illness, and it's very tied into envidia, the source, the envy. And with the mal ojo, so mal ojo is not just a Spanish or a Latin American concept. Mal ojo does go way back to, I would say maybe Arabic beginnings. It's multicultural concept. I've seen it in Jewish culture and Mediterranean culture. But Latin American folk healing is taken very seriously. And the concept here is that someone who has a vulnerable energy can be easily penetrated by other people's sight or gaze upon them, especially children who haven't yet had a chance to reinforce their energy field. For my when I was in Mexico, we spent a lot of time in Mexico growing up, and my little sister was very, very shy and vulnerable and beautiful. And when we would go out to town, you know, she may have been 3 or 4, maybe 4 years old, and so many people would adore her on the streets and in restaurants. And one day we were out at the market, and she out of nowhere just fainted. And so my mom grabbed her and ran like 3 or 4 blocks back to my abuelita's house, my grandma's house. And my grandma laid her in a bed, and she did the egg cleanse. And she opened the egg in the glass of water and watched. And I was just her little shadow. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. I'm just the fly on the wall watching her. And so we see the egg just kind of settle into the water. And then this really interesting thing happened where the middle of the egg just pops out. Like this little button popped out in the middle of the yolk. So you have the spherical yolk and then this button that popped out. And it literally looked like an eyeball looking right at you. And my abuelita was like, oh, yes, es el mal ojo. So that's the eye. She's been affected by the penetration of other energies. And it doesn't have to be maleficent energy. It can just be that she couldn't handle all the attention. So my grandmother went straight into cleansing mode, and she used rue, and she also used a sweep of lemongrass. And the thing about this trio of herbs, and we know that they're all aromatic, right? And there's a lot that we can discern about the use of plants being aromatic, just by definition. And by the way, this is an interesting photo. This is an electron scanned microscope photo of the leaf surface of lemon balm. And what you see here is all these tiny little microscopic hairs that are protective on the leaf surface. And you have the little bubbles on top. And those bubbles are aromatic glands filled with essential oil and aromatic compounds, volatile oils. And the reason they're called volatile is because they dissipate into the air. And so when you rub your hand on a plant leaf that's aromatic, but if you notice, when you step up to a plant, you don't smell it really. It's not until you start to pet it and step on it and touch it and rub the leaf, and then the aroma is released, because when you touch the leaf, you pop all these little bubbles, and then all these tiny, tiny airborne molecules just waft into the air. And then we can smell them because they waft right into our brains, through our olfactory area, through our nose, and they land on receptors in the olfactory nerve and immediately cause an emotional shift. And we know that the emotional shift that has to do with lemon balm, and lemon, the citrus, is one of relaxation, and it's also one of feeling cleansed. And so we have this concept of cleansing and relaxation and joy and grounding from the citrus scents, from these aromatics. And these tiny compounds are so small, and they're lipophilic, which means that they easily penetrate fatty membranes. So they can cross into the every cell of your body, because our cells are lined with a lipid layer. They can cross through the nerves, because the nerves are lined with a fatty sheath, the myelin sheath. And so aromatics have an influence on the nerves. They're nerve loving, and they go to the nerves and they travel on the nerves, and they cause a nerve relaxation. And so here is, especially for someone with trauma, an aromatic trio that helps someone ground, relax, and feel cleansed from trauma. And so when we have these tiny molecules traveling on the nerves, those nerve endings feed, or they're connected with smooth muscle in our body. So then as this relaxing message is sent up the nerves, it reaches the smooth muscle, and then the smooth muscles decide to relax. And the smooth muscle being the organs, the lining of the digestive organs, the lining of the blood vessels, the lining of the uterus, the lining of the ureters. So we get this relaxing sensation all over. A lot of that helps release gassiness. And so we have this carminative flatulence relief. This is why these aromatic cup of teas are so wonderful for digestive issues. And all three of these plants are used for digestion, especially when you think about the nerve component, nervous digestive issues. So you think about children who have butterflies in their stomach, and so their tummies hurt because they're nervous about something. These herbs are perfect for that scenario, for that nervous digestion pattern. And these aromatics are very antioxidant, especially when they're chopped fresh and used on your food. The antioxidant is that peak flavor that you get from the very, I would say, the piqué of aromatic essence, including the spiciness, that little edge, that little zestiness. Is very antioxidant, which means that it really helps prevent oxidation, prevent inflammation, prevent degradation of our tissues. And then across the board, these aromatic compounds are antiseptic. We find all of these aromatic, especially the pleasant, very peak aromatic herbs being used as cleansing agents, being used as cleaners, as soap, as shampoos, as ground up powders to cleanse ringworm and bacterial infections and what have you. And to purify space, a lot of times these herbs are dried and thrown into a fire to cleanse space, to set space for healing, to set up space for contemplation, for ritual, or maybe even you just finished cleaning your house and you want to cleanse energetically. You want to cleanse the space energetically. So I know we really, back to the focus on the herbs. And one thing I want to point out is that not all three of these herbs are actually native to Latin America. So many of them have been embraced because they grow so well in the region, and people have taken to them and taken them in. And one of these is lemongrass, which actually is native to South Asia. And in Espanol, we call it the limoncillo. And by the way, there's many different nicknames. Every country might have a different nickname for lemongrass. So this isn't the only word for lemongrass. But what we see here is lemongrass having this growing like a very tall grass, 3 feet high. I grow it on my porch in a container garden. If you see like one of these clumps of lemongrass could come from one pot, and they're all clump. You can start one little blade with the little stalk there. And that, if you start that in the spring and put that in the ground, it will grow and expand to many, many stalks. And so you can thin them out and then replant them in different pots. Where I live, they're not going to overwinter unless I bring them in the house for a dormant phase or put them in a greenhouse. But they grow really fast from spring to summer. And I can harvest a whole big pot of lemongrass in early fall. And they grow really well in a sunny garden spot. And what we do is save the lighter color parts of the lemongrass toward the bottom here, those juicier, fleshier pieces, and you chop them really thin into little slivers. And that's the part you save for cooking, especially in Asian cuisine and soups and broth and what have you. And then I save the green parts on the top, and I chop them up and dry those and use those for tea, and save that for tea. Traditionally in Latin America, lemongrass does have many uses, including, again, as a cleansing rinse to make an infusion and use that as an oral infusion, where there's actually research on lemongrass infusion to help clear thrush and fungal infections of the mouth. To cleanse the skin, as a wash for skin fungus, as a sitz bath for infections in the delicate regions. Also taken as an infusion for hot conditions, because lemongrass is a nice cooling remedy. In fact, in the Caribbean, they refer to lemongrass as fever grass because it helps cool and helps bring on a sweat. It's also sipped on for an irritable tummy and inhaled to bring joy. The leaves can be juiced and rubbed on the skin to ward off mosquitoes. Lemongrass is a very important compound, often used in mosquito repellent. And so here's another reason to plant it around maybe your porches, so to help keep the mosquitoes away. And then, of course, it's used in cuisine. Now, lemon balm is native to the Mediterranean, also North Africa and Asia. It's not native to Latin America, but highly embraced and grows very easily in Latin America, and we call it the toronjil. Lemon balm has a lot of research behind it. It's a very much more academically, lemon balm's more of a nerdy type of personality. Not only does it really play a role in cognitive enhancement and preventing memory loss, has a lot of research that's relevant to Alzheimer's disease, but it's also very uplifting. I really stockpile lemon balm for the winter months to ward off seasonal affective depressions. It's unnerving, and it can be relaxing to the nerves, relaxing to the digestion, useful for fevers. It's cooling. It can bring on a sweat. It's also antiviral. Again, I think about viruses that have an association with the nerves. So like herpes and shingles and chickenpox and viruses that really thrive when the nerves are flared. Lots of research on just simple water-soluble tea for using lemon balm as a topical, and drink profusely for when you're in the midst of an acute viral situation, or even preventing viral flare-ups. And I wanted to point to this study because it's just so amazing. A 1,600 milligram dose of dried leaf improves cognitive performance in this clinical trial, induced calmness, improved mood, and lengthened attention span. And 1,600 milligram dose of dried leaf is something we can do in our kitchens. So we can make a tea with a couple teaspoons of dried lemon balm. We can take, this is maybe the equivalent of 3 capsules of dried lemon balm, and effects within the hour, lengthening attention span. This is something I gave to my son when he had trouble focusing on school. This is something that I take when I need to sit down and really focus. This is something that I would give to my mom to prevent her, what she calls her old age dinginess. And so very nourishing for the brain. And we'll see that in the trio, lemon balm is the brain of this trio. And then we have the herb that is native to Latin America, the lemon verbena. And the lemon verbena, we call it cedrón, or hierba luisa, or Maria Luisa. And this is very much celebrated in Latin America as its home. This is the sacred hostess. This is, and so I want to take a step back, because all 3 of these herbs do smell like lemon, right? They smell like citrus, but they have a slightly different type of citrus smell. So I would say lemon verbena smells like Skittles. It's got that really lemony brightness, that very tart and lemony smell, whereas lemon balm has more of a maybe a soapy type of lemon smell. And everyone's going to have different perspective here. And then the lemongrass has more of a grassy lemon smell, go figure. And when we look at remember those little bubbles I was telling you about? That's where the smell comes from. And inside that little bubble, they all have similar constituents, but different ratios that define the different herbs. So you'll find different levels of different compounds, even though they have the same aromatic compounds. For instance, citronella is very prominent in lemongrass and not as prominent in the other two. And so it's the actual recipe or the ratio of the oils inside those glands are somewhat like a fingerprint of the herb. And in science, that can be analyzed and the herb can be identified based on the fingerprint of its aromatic ratios. So that's interesting to consider. And lemon verbena is also, like the others, an infusion for calming digestion, but it's also very much used in arthritis and joint pain. And so an infusion in a bath is really nice for calming those achy joints. And then they use, we also use lemon verbena a lot for nerve pain. We might make a salve of it for sciatica or for nerve pain in the neck, or we might use a rinse for nerve pain, or we might use a fomentation. That's just a wet washcloth that's soaked in lemon balm, lemon verbena infusion, and use that to alleviate a headache. Or even pound some leaves and wet them and make a poultice and put that on for a headache. Again, the whole affinity for nerves and calming. I would use lemon verbena topically on a herpes ulcer, for example. Now, lemon verbena for some people can cause a little irritation on the skin. I haven't seen it much, but I have seen warnings about it. So that's something you want to test first. And infused vinegars of lemon verbena are applied to ringworm infections or athlete's foot. Now, I love the infused vinegar of lemon verbena, by the way. It's my favorite way to make it for the kitchen because it's so bright and beautiful and just so flavorful. And in fact, I like my special combination there is to infuse lemon verbena with prickly pear cactus fruit in the vinegar. And then you get this fuchsia colored vinegar that has a little viscosity from the mucilage of the prickly pear with the bright zestiness of the lemon verbena. It's so lovely. It's actually my house vinegar. So in the trio of lemongrass, lemon verbena, and lemon balm, we see a synergy in this sacred formula used for soul loss and susto and mal ojo and trauma and grief and just agitated nerves. And one of the top inspirations here is that this is a cleansing blend, and especially lemongrass plays this role. I mean, when you think about it, what they do a lot is they cut it and bundle these leaves and use it as an actual sweep. And so when I saw my grandmother sweep my sister, that's what she did. She had all these fresh lemongrass leaves tied together and just swept her whole body. And try it sometimes. And lemongrass is not the only herb to do this with, any aromatic, wonderful herb that you're drawn to. But just sweeping the body, just sweeping away the angst and the daily grind and the meetings and the stress. It's just so refreshing and it's so uplifting. And to me, that's the role that lemongrass plays in this formula. And the lemon verbena, it's the one that's native to our land. It's the home. It's the one who holds space for the formula. It's the beloved hostess. It's the one that opens the door and says, you're welcome here. You belong here. You can sit in peace and have a cup of tea, and I'm holding space for you. We all need that in our lives. It's the one that gives us a hug. And the lemon balm, la inteligente, the intelligence, we've seen the effects that lemon balm has on cognitive health and focus. Lemon balm brings clarity of thought to the formula. Lemon balm is the organizer of the formula. It's the one that knows what to do with you. And look at these beautiful roots. In fact, I do want to mention that my colleague, Charles Garcia, who is a curandero and practicing in the Southwest, points to lemon balm roots for use, a decoction of lemon balm roots for use in extremely disturbing depression of a psychic nature, because I find that lemon balm is very uplifting, but when you need something to go penetrate deep into the psyche, you might consider using the roots for that. And so another way that I've used this trio is to make just a sunlit infusion. So I'll just take a few fresh leaves from each of them and put them in a bowl of water and let them infuse under the sun for a little bit. And then what I'm gonna do is take that sweep of lemongrass and put it in the water and use it to sprinkle myself with, or to sprinkle people that I'm working with who have trauma to sort out. And so that's one way to just cleanse, refresh. It's like pressing the restart button and just taking an exhalation or a breath and exhaling and saying, I can do this. Let's go. Let's start fresh. Or even putting this water with the herbs and everything in your bath. And remember to keep that in ratios of 3. I do want to point out that all 3 of these herbs also have an importance to the bees. Lemongrass oil mimics the pheromone that honeybees produce, so it encourages swarms. And lemon verbena is known as bee bush because it has nectar and pollen that the bees love. And lemon balm was a sacred herb in the Temple of Diana. So these are bee medicines. And for us, it helps us stay on task and be a part of a community and contribute to our community if you look at the more energetic aspects of this. So making an infused honey is easy. We just chop some fresh herbs, put them in a jar and cover it with honey. And then we shake for 3 days or 9 days or 18 days. And a ratio of 3, and we shake every day. And then when we're ready, we will strain that honey, and we have a wonderful lemony flavored honey that we can use and put that in our tea, just for a lovely cup of tea and for a little sweetness in life too. So I want to compare the first picture you saw of me where I was in real soul loss and pain with my head laying against the moss and really kind of purging my soul, with this where I'm fulfilled and I've got my harvest of lemon balm and I just have this look of comfort and presence and being. And it's really just a sacred trilogy. And I really just want to thank everyone here for being a part of this presentation. And I think that my time it's time for questions, right, Jiling?
That's right. Mimi, thank you so much. The audience in the chat is going wild and we have a lot of questions for you. I will say though that that a lot of people commented on how they loved you describing lemon balm as nerdy. And personally, I also really enjoyed you describing the scent or the flavor of lemon verbena like Skittles. I love how you bring this down into a very relatable way. So thank you for your brilliant presentation. And First question, do you blend lemon balm, lemon verbena, and lemongrass in equal parts, or what ratio for tea do you like to use?
Yes, for the tea, I like equal parts of each. I usually process them on a dehydrator just to make it a quick and maximize, prevent the loss of the aromatics, and a dehydrator at a real cool, on the cooler side of the settings. With lemon balm, I'm going to garble the stems. So I'm actually going to take the stems and just sort the leaves from the stems, basically. So I'm looking for the leaves. Same thing with lemon verbena. I'm using the leaves. Lemongrass, the green grassy parts. And then I'm going to use the stems to make an infusion just to drink that night. But most of the aromatics are in the leaves. So equal parts. And sometimes you might add a little lemon peel.
More lemon, more aromatics. Someone else was wondering, is it most effective to take the trio dried in tea or fresh? It sounds like you're advocating for dehydrating.
So I dehydrate because I like to stockpile it through the winter months. And I have for lemon balm, I can harvest it 3 to 4 times a year because you chop it down, you harvest, and it comes back. And you chop it down, and a month later, it comes back. Something like lemon verbena or lemongrass, it's like you have one big harvest. And so I do attempt to stockpile enough for the whole year. For me, it serves mostly, I have a lot of seasonal affective depression in the winter. And so that's when I need my psychic allies. Yes, fresh, you just snip some leaves. I love to make sun tea. I love to just leave it in a big gallon jar out in the sunshine and sip on it as house tea for the whole week. But when it comes to the big harvest, I'm going to try to dry a lot of it.
Great. And someone else is asking, are there specific teas that you can recommend for someone that would not be able to make or harvest this trio?
A specific tea that I would recommend aside from this trio, I would pick either one of these. But let's see, other cleansing teas. I might think of something like hibiscus. It also has that zesty kind of wakefulness that's going to reinvigorate you. Sumac berries as an infusion. The good old Southern lemonade also has that cooling and cleansing type of feeling. So, but also it's easy to find in tea bags. It's easy to find one of the 3 of these. And I've also seen the 3 of them together just out there in different blends.
Fantastic. So someone writes, my brother-in-law was born with no sense of smell. I always wondered, is aromatherapy, will it still work on someone like him with no sense of smell?
That's interesting. But yeah, so a lot of this is also just drinking the warm tea or the prepared tea. Those aromatic compounds are in there, and once they go down to your belly, they're going to infuse through your membranes and reach those nerve endings and then travel up the nerves. So you can either inhale them and they reach you that way, or you can drink them and they reach you from the inside out.
Is lemon verbena helpful for nerve pain from neuropathy?
That's what I would suggest, is making an infused oil and maybe a salve for that kind of massage, or even I'm a big fan of herbs in the bath, and that's something so lovely, and that's something where fresh herbs would really accentuate a cleansing bath. But you can also make a strong infusion in a big pot of water and pour that into the bath water.
Lovely. I love that you're including the baths, the oils, the honey, tincture.
If you're really on a more like clinical type of protocol, you might consider trying the tincture. and having that in your health routine.
So someone writes, could you speak a little bit more about cultivation of these 3 herbs?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's easy, especially with lemon balm. Like I would never recommend anyone go out and buy lemon balm plants. Usually there's a neighbor that has it. Well, okay, you can get one plant at a herb festival or nursery and come and put it in the ground. And eventually it's going to really just thrive. It's a medicinal mint. It's in the mint family. And it's just one of those that likes to spread all over, give it a good patch, give it a good area to grow into. So lemon balm's super easy and prolific. And lemongrass in my climate, again, I grow it in a pot, in a container, on a porch in the full sun, or sometimes this year I'm going to try it in a garden. Supposedly it gets really nice and big in a garden, but all I need is that one pot. It's probably about, I would say 20 inches in diameter, and it'll fill the whole pot and really tall. Lemon verbena also, I've seen it grow. I've grown it in pots, but this is my first year having a property. So, and last year was my first year gardening. So I'm all about container gardens, and I do a new lemon verbena plant every year, every summer. And it fills the pot too, it just gets big. But I've seen people who keep lemon verbena plants in their garden, they turn into big shrubs. And so that's like a dream for me. I'm gonna try it.
Beautiful. And then lemongrass?
Oh yeah, no, lemongrass is the one that I grow in a pot. I grow
Okay.
both lemongrass and lemon verbena in pots. In a container, but lemongrass is nice in a garden. It needs full sun. Both lemon verbena and lemongrass they love the sun and they love the heat. You can, with lemongrass, with lemon balm.
All the lemons, yes.
Lemon balm doesn't mind a little part shade, part sun. It gets those really deep green, large leaves if it has a little shade, but mostly sun. But there's no doubt that lemongrass and lemon verbena love and adore full sun. They're sun worshipers. They do also appreciate big gulps of water. So they like to be watered regularly.
This question I find, I love the verbiage for this question. When I steep lemon balm fresh, it is wonderfully potent and miraculously cures my depression. But when I use my dry lemon balm, there is not the same effectiveness. Does the drying process remove the tiny balls displayed in your picture?
I love that question.
Yeah.
And, it does bring us into awareness how carefully we should handle our aromatic plants. Because if you just grab a bunch of aromatic plants and you're handling them so much and you're crunching them and you store them open to the air, those bubbles will keep evaporating. The content of the bubbles will dissipate over time. So you want to process it minimally hands-on. You want to dry it relatively quickly. So this hanging on the rafters, maybe not so much. I mean, it's lovely. It'd be great medicine for the household while it's drying, because all the aromatics are constantly escaping. But if you just, make it a quick dry in a dehydrator for an overnight, and then immediately store it either in a mason jar or in an airtight container, and store it in a dark area away from the sunlight. And that's going to help preserve those essential oils. That said, with lemon balm specifically, the essential oils of lemon balm are known to degrade very quickly. And this is why it's so hard to find lemon balm essential oil, because the volatile compounds, they don't stand up to time. And so one rule of thumb, especially with lemon balm, is to never use it if it's more than a year old. So always use what you harvested that year. So harvest enough for the whole year And then even if you still have 2 pounds left in Ziplocs or however you store it, once you have new lemon balm peeking out, compost and then switch to the fresh stuff. So you never want to save it more than a year, because it's going to be, and there's research on this, is vastly less medicinal quality. And the same goes for tincture too of lemon balm. You want enough lemon balm to get you through a year and no longer.
Along those lines, how long do you put the herbs in a dehydrator for, and what temperature setting do you like to put it at?
Oh, wow. I don't know, but it's like, so if this was low and this is high, I'm like somewhere right here. So it's not really warm. It's just like a touch warm, and it's usually just overnight. So it's a slow dehydrator process. It's not in 2 hours. I think that's too hot, too fast. But you also don't want to leave it in there for 2 or 3 days. So I'm such a folk herbalist these days, so I don't have a lot of math for you anymore.
I remember that. Yeah, pretty much same here. So we're starting to come down start winding down the questions a little bit. Can you elaborate on the effects of lemon balm to the thyroid for someone with either hyper or hypothyroidism?
Yeah, and every time I talk about lemon balm, that question comes up, and it's good to talk about that because I'm just going to quote what my teacher, Dr. James Duke, says about this here in one of his books. He says, as lemon balm has been found to have an effect upon the thyroid hormone in a lab dish, I inserted that. One scientific paper cautions the use of lemon balm if someone has a propensity toward hypothyroidism for fear the levels of TSH will fall even farther. Yet, Dr. James Duke states that lemon balm seems to have the ability to normalize thyroid hormone levels, regardless of whether there's too much or too little. The scientific community would do well to actually study the full influence of lemon balm upon the thyroid, as opposed to one half of the medicinal action, basically creating falsified facts. And, there's just this big rumor because in a petri dish, in vitro lemon balm compounds were found to lower thyroid hormone. So everyone's run with this caution. And I find that people with depleted thyroid actually are really a great match for lemon balm. It's uplifting, it's grounding, it's cleansing. I'm not worried, although I do keep my ear to the ground on conversations among clinicians if they're seeing any awkward effects. And I just haven't seen any clear evidence that lemon balm will deplete a thyroid. Now, for someone with hyperthyroid, it's going to be also nice. So I'm just not worried about it.
Great. Thank you so much. And amazing that you had that quote and that research right there to reference from. One final perfect question to round us out. In this herbal trio, you mentioned that lemon balm provides the clarity of thought or nerdiness. Lemongrass is like a hug or home-like. What would you liken lemon verbena to?
Mm-hmm. So lemon verbena is the hug or home-like because lemon balm is a native plant of South America. Lemon verbena is home and a hug. Lemon balm is clarity of thought. Lemongrass is cleansing to the aura. So yeah, I would liken lemon balm is like clearing the cobwebs of the mind, whereas lemongrass is clearing the cobwebs of the psyche and the aura and the kind of this whole glow. And then lemon verbena she's the hostess. She's the one who grew up in Latin America.
Beautiful. Mimi, this was so beautiful and so magical. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your world and a bit of your ancestors with us as well. And just so much respect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks for having me. And thanks to Mountain Rose Herbs and Free Herbalism Project.
Yeah. And thank you everyone so much for sharing your fabulous questions. If we did not have an opportunity to answer them here, we'll continue answering questions that we haven't answered yet in the Q&A. Keep on throwing your fabulous questions in there, and any other discussions in the chat. We've had some wonderful recipes in there, so go take a look in the chat box. And now we welcome some music from the Muddy Souls. Once more, go make yourself some tea, go take a bio break, get some snacks, and then we'll see you back in 15 minutes. Enjoy.
Welcome back, folks. We're the Muddy Souls, and we're going to play Hardworking Man. Daddy would get up in the morning before the rising sun, and when that sun went down again, his work still wasn't done. With a cigarette between his lips and a coffee in his hand, Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man. Hard-working man, hard-working man. Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man. With a cigarette between his lips, coffee in his hand, Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man. Tractor, chopping down those trees, painting people's houses and raking up their leaves, riding on that snowplow and chopping firewood, helping out the neighbors just like a person should. Hard-working man, hard-working man. Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man, with a cigarette between his lips, coffee in his hand. Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man. That he's older, he started slowing down. He likes to live a quiet life in a quiet little town. Reads the Sunday papers, listens to the news, smokes a lot of weed to help him keep away the blues. Hard-working man, hard-working man. Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man, with a cigarette between his lips, coffee in his hand. Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man. Gets to heaven, there'll be angels all around. He'll be painting people's houses in that little angel town, talking to the neighbors, and they'll be angels too. I've heard that up in heaven there's not much work to do. Hard-working man, hard-working man. Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man, with a cigarette between his lips and a coffee in his hand. Daddy is an old-fashioned hard-working man. Work hard.
We're going to play one called Running Away. You can find this on our upcoming album. Available everywhere, March 11th. Just me here, plain to see, this whole thing is crumbling down. If you want fear, you'll find it here. He's taking the whole damn town. Look to the sky and hold my head up high. Still them tears I cry. And although the years go passing by, still I wonder why I'm running away now. And I'm going down the track. And I'm running away now. I'm not going back. And I'm running away now. And I'm going down the track. And I'm running away now. I'm not going back. 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 Storms are raging in the east. Winds are picking up. There's people rising in the streets, and it seems we've had enough. Amidst all the confusion, the river takes the town, and our safety's an illusion, and the city's burning down. I'm running away now, and I'm going down the track, and I'm running away now. I'm not going back. And I'm running away now, and I'm going down the track, and I'm running away now. I'm not going back. 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 Like a phoenix we will rise and right our wrong, and see the world with brand new eyes and sing a different song. And when the smoke has cleared, maybe we will see what it really means to be truly free. I'm running away now, and I'm going down the track, and I'm running away now. I'm not going back. And I'm running away now, and I'm going down the track, and I'm running away now. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
Thank you, folks. Now Austin Sloan here is going to sing you one.
First, I'm going to tune this thing.
Some brief tuning. wintertime.
This next song is called Bridges. It goes out to my family in Western Ukraine. There's a flood back in 2017 that took out 90 bridges. Yes, the rain is pouring down. We were raised on this ground, and the water has overtaken the town. And the damage, it's profound, and the bridges, they're falling down, falling down, falling down, falling down. And the bridges, they're falling down. Now the trees keep coming down, and the runoff, it runs so high, and the runoff, it runs so high, it reaches out to touch the sky, and the law just walks on by. It reaches out to touch the sky, and the bridges, they're falling down, falling down, falling down, falling down, and the bridges, they're falling down. Yes, the seasons, they bid farewell. We were raised on this ground, and the water has overtaken the town. And the damage, it's profound, and the bridges, they're falling down, falling down, falling down, falling down, and the bridges, they're falling down, falling down, falling down, falling down.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
More? to squeeze one quick one in here for you.
This next song is called Muddy Souls Breakdown. Break it down.
Thank you very much, folks. We're the Muddy Souls. Thanks to Mountain Rose Herbs for having us for the Free Herbalism Project, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, Dr. Crystal Dawn, looking beautiful. And thank you so much, Muddy Souls, for your amazing music. I am honored to welcome Dr. Crystal Dawn here. And Dr. Crystal Dawn Silas is an informative, dynamic, and inspirational healer, speaker, and leader. She's a functional medicine, family medicine, and emergency department physician with over 20 years of infusing botanical medicines and other integrative approaches into her unique healing modalities. Dr. Crystal Dawn inspires everyday lifestyle choices that enhance the body, mind, spirit's innate ability to renew itself towards luminous well-being. Dr. Crystal Dawn is a world nomad whose compassionate yet provocative paradigms have been shifting lives around the planet for decades. And today, Dr. Crystal Dawn will be sharing with us what is the microbiome and how to nourish it. Welcome, Dr. Crystal Dawn. Thanks so much for joining us here. There you go.
Thank you, Jiling, for such a provocative introduction. It is my joy to be here today to be sharing with Mountain Rose Herb community about a topic that I believe is the foundation to health, to wellness for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, and for the entire planet. So we're going to take a ride. I want you to know that we are going to be on this path towards a healthy lifestyle. We're going to discuss our microbiome, what it is, and then how to make it flourish, to make it come alive. What is it that we need to do to weed, to seed, and to feed it? So we are here to learn, to practice, to offer, and to teach those well-being modalities that will transfer lives, relieve symptoms, and prevent and heal dis-ease. So I'm going to take a page from the playbook of my sister Mimi and her Fragrant trio and take a moment and take a deep breath and call upon the spirit of our plant allies and the guardians of this earth. May they allow every word that I speak in this next hour be in the highest good for the wellness of all life on this planet. "2,400 years ago, the father of medicine, Hippocrates, stated all dis-ease begins in the gut." Well, I don't know about you, but by the time I got around to school, whether that was pre-med in college or medical school, I learned more of a systems type of physiology. So what I learned was the cardiovascular system, the gastrointestinal system, the pulmonary system, the dermatological system, and other systems. And it was almost as if none of them were related to each other. We were to think of them each as operating independently and not influencing one another. So we are coming back around again because through my involvement in functional medicine, we are acknowledging that in fact, Hippocrates was correct and all dis-ease does begin in the gut. Microorganisms are the most successful, the most abundant organism on this earth. They have predated all life on this earth, and in fact, all life on this earth co-evolved with them. The plants, the animals, the fish, the trees, the birds, and yes, humanity ourselves. Throughout the millennia of the development of humanity, our physiology has begun to trust these organisms. And in fact, we have farmed out, allowed certain aspects of our metabolism and our physiology to be guided by the presence of these organisms. So we find these organisms on our skin, and they're in our hair, they're in our mouths, they're in our ears, they're in our vagina and on our genitals. But the vast majority of these microorganisms are found in our digestion tract, in our colon, in the distal part of our digestive tract. It is said that there are 100 trillion of these microbes in our digestive tract. And yet there are only 10 trillion human cells. So their presence outnumbers us, both genetically and numerically. And that a huge part of our physiology relies on them for normal, healthy functioning has gotten us rethinking exactly what it means to be a human being. And we are thinking of this microbiome as actually being an organ in and of itself. They are the bacteria and the fungi. They are the archaea, which is a type of microorganism that is not fungi and not bacteria, but a little bit of both. They are the viruses and the protozoa and the helminths. And we have co-evolved with these. Our microbiome is a very sensitive ecosystem, very similar to the ecosystem of the rainforest and the ecosystems of the Great Barrier Reef. And at the same time, it's delicate. I want to take a moment and mention another breakthrough in modern science, and that is the Human Genome Project, where we actually mapped out the genetic codes of all of humanity. And what we found is that we're actually 99.5% identical. However, it is our genome, it is our microbiome that can differ drastically. And we've also have seen the importance of epigenetics. And I want to introduce this term to you. And what that has revealed to us is that most of the dis-ease is due to social, behavioral, and environmental factors, not in fact due to our genetic programming. Now, it can seem like dis-eases run in families, but a lot of times that is because patterns of behavior tend to run in families as well. So our environment plays a pivotal role in how our genes are expressed, and our microbiome is a part of that environment. Our microbiome is a reflection of our macrobiome. So let's bring ourselves here to the industrialized nations like our United States, like Europe, like the great cities in South America and in Africa and in Asia and all over. We are seeing a plethora of dis-ease that was not known just 100 years ago. The rising of adult onset diabetes is happening younger and younger. The cardiovascular disease, the cancers. In addition, the neurocognitive diseases like Alzheimer's is rising, and Parkinson's disease, not to mention anxiety and depression. The industrialized nation, the United States, takes more of the antidepressants. 50% of the world's antidepressants is right here in the United States, consumed right here. Autism is another neurodegenerative disease that was unheard of when our grandparents were children, when our parents were children. And so we're seeing a huge rise in these diseases that we don't see in those societies that are still living close to the earth. So whether we go to Papua New Guinea or to Tanzania or down into the jungles of South America, when we come across those communities, those few communities that still live very, very close to the earth, meaning that what they gather for food today is what they're going to eat. We don't see these diseases. We don't see the autism. We don't see the cancer. We don't see the dementia. And the Human Genome Project looked to see why this is, and what we found out, what we saw, is that the microbiome of these communities that are living close to the land, close to the earth, was much more diverse than the microbiomes of those of us who live in industrialized countries and an industrialized lifestyle. And so that led us to realize and to begin to hypothesize that the number and the diversity of our gut microbiome has an impact on acute and chronic disease. We also see that the microbiome and our gut is not only responsible for digestion, assimilation, and elimination, but that our microbiome plays a pivotal role in our gene expression, in our immunity, in our mood and cognition, in our hormones, and in our metabolism. And what we're even hypothesizing now is that could it be the absence of some of these microbes that is leading to the plethora of health conditions that is plaguing industrialized countries and the people who live there. In addition, we acknowledge that half of the biotransformation, which we used to call detoxification, except that when we would say detox, then people would get confused and they thought maybe we were referring to like alcohol detox. So we decided that we needed a different word for that type of neutralization that happens in the body from its own physiology of toxins and the waste products that are created as a result of normal metabolism. And what we're finding is that our intestinal bacteria play a major role in transformation and may explain some of the differences of metabolism between individuals. Now, there's a word here called xenobiotic, and xenobiotic are those materials that are foreign to life, that if we were to do a biopsy of your fat cells, that we would find it inside of our bodies. So for example, a xenobiotic could be plastic. It's been estimated that we each eat inadvertently, I hope, the equivalent of a credit card in plastic per month. And that plastic is bioactive, actually. It's hormonally active, and it influences, it's one of those things that influences our genetic expression. And our microbiome and our liver and our kidneys all work together to metabolize both foreign materials that end up in our bodies, whether it's from us putting it on our skin or inadvertently eating it or breathing it in, as well as normal metabolism of physiology. And every now and then you're going to notice that I threw a journal article in because that's for those of us who like to nerd out and find the research there. I want to take a moment and explain about leaky gut. So this is another journal article. You can look this up. BDNF is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and hippocampal neurons are found in the brain. And so essentially it's saying that if the gut is damaged, then the brain-blood barrier is also damaged. And this was printed in the Frontiers of Neuroscience in 2018. So all that's well and good. What I want to do is to take a moment and explain to you about leaky gut and intestinal permeability. So right here, we are on the inside of our gut. This is the, I don't know how to, oh, here it is. Okay, so this is the lumen of our gut. This is the inside of our gut. And this is the outside of our gut. This is going into the body. This is where we're eating our food. And this is our cell walls inside of our intestines. And as you can see, this is one cell wall thick. And then we have these little villi that rub against the food that we eat and help it to extract all the potential nutrients and nourishment in there. And this is the tight junctions that help so that things don't leak from the intestinal lumen into our bodies inadvertently. So they help to protect that. But certain things in our food can cause these Velcro-like proteins to misfold and become weak. And then undigested or partially digested products or chemicals that are in our food or that we're exposed to in our gut lumen can now leak over this one cell wall intestinal tract into our bodies. And just behind here, just behind this basal membrane, is our immune system. The gut has more nerves than our spinal cord, 500 times more nerves. If we were to take this gut and spread it out flat, because it's got folds and folds and folds in and of itself, each of our guts will be about, the lining of our intestines will be about the size of 2 tennis courts. If we were to lay out our skin, it's only about 2 meters, 2 yards long. So what this tells us is that we are you looking for me, Jiling?
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Crystal Dawn, so sorry to interrupt you, but you're not sharing your screen, and we would love to see the screen.
Oh, thank you. I thought I was sharing my screen. Thank you, dear.
Yeah.
Okay,
so sorry to interrupt.
You. Let me hold on. I thought we were sharing it. Oh my goodness. Thank you for raising your hand. So let me find us. Here we are. And share screen. There we are. And here we are. Voila. Wait, and then share. Are we there now?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I need to start all over again, but I won't. So thank you, Jiling, for letting me know that. I thought we had done that. I was looking at my screen. So so this is the one cell membrane of our gut, and this is the villi. And these are the tight junctions right here. And these tight junctions can be weakened by things like glyphosates or preservatives and things like that in our food, by simple sugars like sucrose and fructose and things like that. And then when they get weakened, the proteins become unraveled and things can leak into our bodies. And then our immune system is right here, and our immune system comes to the gut for training. So we need a lot of variety and a lot of diversity of bacteria and microbes within our intestinal lumen for training. It's like our immune system is doing its push-ups. But when we don't have the biodiversity in our intestinal lumen, of microbes, then the immune system can become a little confused. Not only that, but this leaky gut sets up a chronic inflammatory response right here in our gut lining. And so that, all of that can lead to these chronic diseases. And so what are some of the symptoms of a damaged microbiome? Well, it can be abdominal pain, cramping, gas, nausea, belching, heartburn or reflux, constipation, diarrhea, food allergies, food sensitivities, bloating, abdominal distension, indigestion, and or mucus and stool. I'm going to read these for those who are only listening for the audio. Extraintestinal symptoms might be weight gain, brain fog, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, perhaps mood imbalances, even anxiety. There's weakness, joint and or muscle pain, skin breakouts. It could be acne, it could be folliculitis, sinus congestion, shortness of breath, and bad breath. And then remember there's a rise of autoimmune conditions here in industrialized countries that we don't see when we are in those communities that live closer to the earth. And they include asthma, seasonal allergies, food allergies, eczema, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, multiple sclerosis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, interstitial disease, depression, anxiety, obesity, celiac disease, diverticulitis. Even severe COVID is an inflammatory condition, and Clostridium difficile, C. diff. But remember, I mentioned that there are 500 times more nerves in our intestinal lumen than there is even in our own spinal cord. And so we're seeing an increase in these neuropsychiatric diseases associated with a damaged microbiome. They include autism spectrum disorders, ADHD, ADD, anxiety, depression, bipolar, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, schizophrenia, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, migraine headaches, and more. This is another article about the gut microbiome in a human neurological disease. For those of us that like to nerd out in the details and in the research, you can find it on PubMed, and anyone has access to that. There are metabolic diseases associated with a damaged microbiome, and they include obesity, adult onset diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. In fact, all of the alcohol diseases, the hepatitis, the cirrhosis, acute pancreatitis, as well as chronic, high cholesterol, coronary artery disease, chronic kidney disease. Osteoporosis is a metabolic disease. And then there's endocrine hormonal disease associated with the damaged microbiome, and they include endometriosis, polycystic ovary disease, endometrial hyperplasia, sexual dysfunctions, infertility, hypothyroid, erectile dysfunction, prostate cancer, endometrial cancer, and breast cancer. In fact, we are looking closer at the relationship of the microbiome and these cancers. And we are even seeing that the microbiome influences how one might respond to chemotherapy. So when I learned you are what you eat, I realized that I was nuts. So I painted a pretty grim picture here about the dis-ease that is associated with a damaged microbiome. But I am here to tell you that there is one thing that we all can do that will positively increase the quality and the quantity and the diversity of the microflora in our intestines. And that is the amount of plants that we consume on a daily basis. Another article about the evolution of well-being and happiness after an increase in consumption of fruits and veggies. The American Journal of Public Health. So what has happened to the microbiome? There are several postulations about that. When the microbiome took a hit about 10,000 years ago as man became more agriculturally oriented and less gathering the foods of that day. So it took a hit then. And then it took a hit about 400 years ago, meaning a decline, when I say a hit, in diversity and number, when we started with mass production and distribution of foods. And then more recently, with the advent of these processed foods that are caloric dense, but nutrient poor, this has led to the current suffering and demise of the microbiome, of our internal ecological system that we all have in our bodies, on our skins, in our colons. So we can do something about that. Let's let plants be our medicine. They should be organic, no GMO at all, no processed foods. We need fiber. We need diversity. We need fermented foods. We need to have times where there's fasting and when we're not eating at all, because there's lots of rest and restoration that happens during times of fasting. So I'm going to introduce to you my 5R lifestyle to optimize our gut health. And they are to remove and reduce. Number 1, we take away. Number 2, we replace. Number 3, we re-inoculate. Number 4, we repair. And number 5, we rebalance. So let's begin with the first one, and that is to remove. And guess what it is that we're going to be removing, first of all? Yep, you got it. We're going to be removing industrialized foods and refined sugars. So we're going to remove refined grains, gluten, and saturated fats. Alcohol is actually toxic to the microbiome, so we need to cut back or to eliminate it entirely. Exposure to environmental toxins has a blow on the microbiome and on the general well-being. Remember, our microbiome is responsible for biotransformation. It works in partnership with our liver and with our kidneys. Processed foods, which I say is anything with more than 5 ingredients on its label, and if it has something in it that you don't know what it is or you can't pronounce, it's a processed food. So foods with additives, dyes, emulsifiers, preservatives, flavoring, all of that goes. Processed meats go. We did an experiment once where we actually took just the labels from people's cabinets, took the labels, cut them off the box of the foods that they had in their cabinets that they ate on a daily basis. And we read to them the ingredients of the labels and asked them to identify which food that was, and they couldn't do it. This is not food. So we don't want to eat this. Refined sugar. Sugar's not our friend. Sugar burns dirty in the body as a fuel. When I say sugar, I mean refined sugar. So those high fructose corn syrups and sucrose and candy, and burns dirty in the body. It creates advanced glycosylated end products. AGE is the acronym for that. And it leads to inflammaging. So it accelerates the aging process, and it also accelerates aging in the body and dis-ease. And it leads to brain fog and a number of products of things. So we want to cut back on that. And sugar substitutes are not our friends either. That diet stuff, no, the saccharides and all that stuff, those are neurotoxins, no. Energy drinks, high sugar sport drinks, soda is not our friend, neither is diet soda. Even fruit juice, if you take the pulp out of it, then you've taken all the fiber out of it and you get a big glycemic load. So that's something that we want to even look at carefully. And then pharmaceuticals when they're not necessary. And that includes antibiotics, NSAIDs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, steroids, proton pump inhibitors. Those are antacids given to people with ulcers that slows the acid from being produced in the stomach. But then that leads to to food being incompletely digested and later on to perhaps SIBO or an imbalance of flora. So if you need to be on any of those, you do it and then you get off. You don't stay on. Even antidepressants have an adverse effect on our microbiome. And then we get to replace. So guess what we're going to replace with? Yes, our plant allies. We can have all the fresh, organic, GMO-free vegetables, plants, herbs, spices, fruits, nuts, seeds, mushrooms that we want. Let's first start with a cup of tea and take a deep breath. And this is just a quick slide just to show you all the wonderful plants, all the wonderful flavonoids and nutritional things that are in a simple cup of a dandelion leaf tea right here. Yeah. So start with a cup of tea. There's all kinds of goodness in that cup of tea. And instead of soda, in fact, we can make it tea. We can have water or we can have fresh or dried infusions of herbs. We need to drink at least 2 to 3 liters of water a day. If you're drinking coffee, that's a diuretic. So you're going to want then 3 liters of water. That does not count as your water, but your herbal infusions do count as your water. So we want at least 2 or 3 liters a day. And because we want a diversity of plants in our diet, feel free to infuse your favorite herbs in that water. And then we can drink on that and sip on that. Make them various, make them plentiful, because guess what? We need 10 to 12 different servings of plants a day. And yes, our tea does count as that. We need 30 different servings a week. Our microbes thrive on diversity. Imagine that each microbe has its own favorite plant food. And if you are not eating that, then you are depriving that microbe of what it needs to grow and flourish within your body. So we want and to tilt your genetic code towards repair and restore and not towards dis-ease. So we need at least 2 servings of fruits a day. You can have more. We need those healthy fats and seeds and nuts and avocado, coconut, olives. And then also their oils are good. Olive oil, coconut oil, yes, yes. Or even ghee. Whole grains, consider gluten-free. Consider those ancient grains or organic grains. Everything must always be organic. Everything must always be organic. Beans, legumes are good. Mushrooms are good. Yes, yes, yes. If you must eat meat, then make it a better than choice. So you want your meat to be antibiotic-free, hormone-free, preferably fed organically. You want it to be happy, free range. You want your fish to be wild caught. And then consider moving it down. Instead of eating it with every day, consider making it 2 to 3 servings a week. Most of us are not protein deficient. Most of us are fiber deficient. So we want to replace and put fiber at the foundation of our food pyramid. We want at least 50 grams of fiber a day. And fiber is sexy, y'all. Let me tell you, fiber leads to the formation of short chain fatty acids. And these fatty acids are the most anti-inflammatory molecules known to man. They nourish the gut lining of our intestinal tract. They help to quell inflammation throughout the entire body. They help for positive information being given to our genetic code. They help to repair. They help to restore. So we want to eat fiber. And when we don't eat fiber, when we're eating a caloric dense but fiber poor, like hamburger and French fries type of meal or pizza type of meal, then what happens is that the fats and the protein and the refined carbohydrates doesn't make it down into the large intestines. And so there is no food for those organisms in the large intestines, and then they begin to die out. But when they die out, when there's less of them, remember it's a delicate ecosystem, then there is a bloom of those organisms that will literally eat away at the gut lining of the mucus in our gut lining at the very beginning, up there where the villi are. And that then leads to leaky gut. But if we feed them fiber-rich food, which is found in all of the plants, they all have their own types of fiber, all of them are useful, then we keep there's an increase in diversity, there's an increase in the numbers, and they're happier, they're healthier, they can do their job. The cells of our intestinal tract are intact, all is good. So high fiber promotes a diverse microbiome. It prevents leaky gut, protects from all those bowel diseases like diverticulitis and et cetera. Produces short chain fatty acids, which are the most anti-inflammatory, anti-aging molecule known to man, reduces appetite, and therefore helps with obesity, stabilizes blood sugar, helps with diabetes, protects from breast cancer, colon cancer, fiber helps to prevent constipation, fiber promotes a healthy immune response, and fiber protects our hearts. So we get fiber in our spices and herbs, and our nuts and seeds, and our organic grains, roots, and our legumes. Lentils has 7.3 grams of fiber per 100 grams. It is one of the highest in our foods of fiber, but all of these foods, the whole fruits, the vegetables, they all have their unique type of fiber. And so they all need to be consumed. And diversity is the key. However, spices are among the most fiber-rich of all the foods that one can possibly eat. So let's compare it to the lentils. That was 7.3 grams per 100 grams of food. Cinnamon has 53.1 grams of fiber per 100 grams of cinnamon. So so number one is cinnamon, then there's savory, coriander seeds, sage, fennel seed, caraway seed, paprika, cloves, cardamom, the peppers, bay leaf, more peppers, fenugreek, Oh, I like fenugreek. We can sprout fenugreek and put that on our salad. And have you ever noticed that your perspiration begins to smell like caramel? At least mine does. So try it out. Try some sprouted fenugreek seed. Allspice, dill, turmeric, nutmeg, mace, and poppy seeds. These are the highest fiber content of the spices, but all of them and all the vegetables are yes, 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 let's do it. So we want to sprinkle spices and herbs generously on all of our food. So this is a recipe for my spice super high vibe fiber popcorn. You can come back to it at your convenience, but essentially I use nutritional yeast and put some chili powder, curry powder, ground cumin and cayenne in it and drizzle some ghee on there and we're good to go. And fiber and popcorn, of course, is the most high fiber snack that you can have. Spices, again, another article about spices and them being anti-inflammatory and antioxidant agents. We're going to re-inoculate now. So we've removed, we've reduced, now we're re-inoculating. And what are we going to re-inoculate with? Yes, fermented foods and prebiotics. So let's take a moment and just talk about prebiotics. These are a type of fiber that seems to help the gut to establish a very healthy, diverse community. And this is a list of all of them, but I want to give special mention to garlic, onions, and leeks. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay. All right, but all of these can be considered prebiotics. And then we have fermented foods. Now, I don't recommend probiotics anymore. I recommend fermented foods. And we have sauerkraut and kimchi. And then even more probiotics than that is homemade yogurt. And then even more probiotic rich than that is homemade kefir. And then even more probiotic rich than that is kombucha made from teas and fruit juices. And then even more than that is Rejuvelac. And these foods are rich in acids that nourish a healthy microbiome and a healthy gut lining. The sauerkrauts and the kimchis are fiber rich. And what I want to recommend is that we make our own. In fact, we can even get together a community of like-minded individuals who understand the healing powers of their kitchen. And we can say, hey, you make the sauerkraut, and why don't you throw 3 or 4 different herbs in that? And you make the kimchi, and you make the yogurt, because when we do our own yogurts, we ferment it for at least 24 hours. The yogurt that's store-bought is only fermented for about 4 hours. So we're going to have much more diversity in our homemade yogurt and our homemade kefir and our homemade kombucha and our homemade Rejuvelac than anything we can possibly buy in the store. And so let's get together a community of about 7 of us, and then we come together and we share. So I got to make my sauerkraut, and I made a curry sauerkraut with all the herbs and spices with that. And she made a dill sauerkraut, and she made a kimchi with all the cayenne. And he did a yogurt and a kefir and a kombucha from these herbs. And you did a kombucha from that herb. And then we all come together once a month, every other month, once a quarter, and we share. Because my kitchen has a different microbiome than his kitchen and then her kitchen. So we need to be sharing the microbiome, y'all. So this is medicine, this is healing, this is an idea. We re-inoculate with our pets and with coming in contact with nature. We re-inoculate through contact with soil microbes. I want to take a moment here and say that pets for children, especially when they are young, helps them to have less autoimmune, less asthma, healthier immune systems. Also, a good inoculation happens at birth through vaginal delivery. So if the child was born by C-section, then he acquires less diversity of microorganisms than if he came through the sacred birth canal of the vagina. There is a healthier inoculation, a healthier immune system as a result of that. So exposure to animals, to nature, to soil, all of that helps us to re-inoculate, yes. For example, if we're growing carrots, let's pull them up out the dirt, rub that dirt off and take a bite of it, rub the big dirt off and then just take a bite. We don't have to go washing it and scrubbing it and all that other stuff. Leave some of it on there because there's some great microbes in that, on that carrot coming from that dirt. And then this is a reminder that we want all the different colors. We want to eat from all the different colors of the rainbow. We want green, yellow, red. There's different phytonutrients in all the colors, and it's all good. So I want to take a moment and talk about demulcents. Demulcents are those slimy mucilaginous herbs that are made up of branch carbohydrate molecules that easily trap water and other molecules. And this causes them to swell, to become soft, and they reinforce the intestinal mucus layer. So that is both home and food to microorganisms. So remember, I had talked about when there was not enough fiber in the diet, that there could be a bloom of those organisms that will then begin to eat away at the mucin layer of our intestinal tract, which is there to protect us. So demulcents become both home and food to a healthy microbiome community. So they are a whole tract of herbs, they are a whole class of herbs and foods and spices. And they include chia, flax, oat groats, slippery elm bark, psyllium seed, marshmallow, licorice, chickweed, cleavers, cinnamon, aloe vera, comfrey, mullein leaf, sea vegetables, okra, etc., etc., etc. Also, let us remember our sea vegetables. They're rich in, they can be rich in chlorophyll, which is a potent phytonutrient that is nourishing, but they're also demulcents. And they also come with their own, every plant has its own microbiome also. So not only are we getting the fiber, not only are we getting the phytonutrients, but we are also ingesting the microbiome of those plants. So when we eat sea vegetables, we get to have the diversity of those microbes that live in the sea. So yes. All right, so we're going to repair digestion, first of all, by chewing our food thoroughly. When we are present and mindful of the food that we're eating, then the digestive juices will run and will flow. The salivary juices, the bile juices, all of that will flow and digestion happens. But when we're eating on the run, when we're multitasking, then if we're arguing over the dinner table or something like that, then that inhibits digestion. So digestion can happen just by chewing food thoroughly and allowing our saliva to thoroughly mix with the food. And then there are bitter herbs that we can use to stimulate digestion, like artichoke and dandelion and burdock and milk thistle, even organic coffees. And then there's herbs that are bitters and carminatives, or bitters and nervines. And carminatives are, they have volatile oils and they help to release trapped gas and bloating. And then nervines generally are calming, but they have an effect on the nervous system. So we can kind of get 2 for 1 with that. So yeah, so we can, and then once again, remember, we're looking for plant diversity. So when you go to make your cup of herbal tea, why not think about this and choose your tea from this? A bitter is perfect before a meal. A bitter herb is perfect before a meal in a tea. Take a moment and talk about SIBO. SIBO is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. This happens when there is a lot of refined carbohydrates in our diet. This also happens if we are on proton pump inhibitors. SIBO, there's the most of the flora of most of our intestinal flora should be in our colon, but sometimes we're finding that it moves up into the small bowel, and this is not supposed to happen. So when it does happen, then what the symptom of that is that when you go to eat, that you might notice some bloating immediately. We call it like a food baby, like your belly is hard. So that's a big symptom of it. There are some herbs that can help with that. I like to use my herbs as food or as teas, treat for 6 weeks. It can be stubborn. Sometimes you need to retreat. Garlic, and the allium family, oregano, cinnamon are some of my favorites, berberine and neem also. So this is for that. This is for that. Carminative herbs are those aromatic herbs that contain volatile oils, and these help to relieve intestinal gas. A lot of people say, you know, doc, you put me on that new diet with all that roughage, and sometimes we just don't have the bacterial flora yet to help us to digest it properly, all of that protein. And so all of that fiber. And so then what can happen is that sometimes there's a little bit of gas. So carminatives used as herbs, teas, and spices help to diminish that until we can weed, seed, and feed the microbiome that we want. So here are some carminative herbs that are also nervines. Here are just plain carminative herbs. So aloe vera is among my favorites. Chamomile is among my favorites. Basil, a lot of this we can use in cooking. There's cinnamon, there's clove, there's cumin, curry leaf, curry powder, coriander, clove, dill, fennel, fenugreek. We can put dill in our sauerkraut and ginger, garlic, lemon balm, fragrant trio, licorice, marjoram, mints, motherwort, mustards, et cetera, turmeric. And to get a 2 for 1, we can also consider those carminative herbs that are also nervines, meaning that they're calming. They might help also calm the nerves a little bit, help us to sleep better, especially chamomile, valerian root, lavender. Or for those who might have depression or fatigue, I find peppermint, rosemary, and tulsi are more stimulating nervines, yes. Yeah. Here's some help for constipation support. We want If we're constipated, then biotransformation is not happening. So here are some herbs with that. We want physical activity and movement. We want to align ourselves with a circadian rhythm. We want good stress management. We want to make sure that we're well hydrated, chew our water thoroughly, diet rich in fiber. We're finding flaxseed, chia, psyllium husk, prunes, aloe vera, dandelion root, yellow dock, triphala. All of those are very helpful in eliminating constipation and giving us elimination support. And so now we're down to the final R, and that is rebalance. Rebalance to enhance our microbiome. And so that comes with adaptogens. Give me 2 more minutes. That comes with adaptogens, aligning ourselves with the circadian sleep rhythm, meditation, exercise, and sunshine. Sunshine helps to getting exposure to sunshine. Something as simple as that helps to decrease cortisol levels. Cortisol is one of the most inflammatory stress molecules known to man. It leads to muscle wasting. It leads to adiposity, to gaining weight. It causes a cascade of inflammation throughout our body. Exercise is anti-inflammatory. Meditation, present moment awareness and mindfulness, circadian sleep and rhythm, sleeping at night, and awake and active during the day. And then, of course, adaptogens. And this is just to ask you to let us know that we're sharing microbiomes with those we cohabitate with. And so I ask you, who are you sleeping with? You know what I mean. And then some of the adaptogenic herbs that are super yummy that kind of help us with this rebalance. Adaptogen are those class of herbs that kind of know what the body needs. And so if our immune system is too low, they help to lift it up. If it's too ramped up, they help to lift it down. If our nervous system is too high, it helps to calm us down. If it's too low, it helps to lift us up. They're immune modulators. They have multifaceted. I love to use them as foods whenever possible. Licorice root, which is also a carminative and also a dimulcent and an adaptogen, triple bang. We have ashwagandha root, astragalus, I like to use in debilitated people or people who have been weakened by dis-ease. The mushrooms, cordyceps, reishi, and chaga are potent inflammatory modulators. Modulators of inflammation. They help to promote a healthy immune response, the mushrooms do. We have holy basil leaf, which is good for those that might have depression or dysthymia. I like to use schizandra berry in those that might have chronic fatigue. Turmeric is rich in turmerones and curcuminoids, and those are very good for not only for anti-inflammatory topically in the belly and on the gut, but they help with that gut-brain interface. And it actually increases turmeric and its constituents actually increases neural development in the brain. So it leads to neuroplasticity, which hint, might be my next topic with mountain rose herbs. I like to use rhodiola when there's sleep disturbance, as an adaptogen when there's sleep disturbance. So we know that we can, so we have our 5 R's, and we know that a healthy gut microbiome, well, the most effective thing that we can do is to consume a variety of plants as food, as herbs, as spices, as teas. These are our secret agent to nourish a healthy microbiome. If you're in doubt or overwhelmed, start with a cup of tea. And this is all that good stuff that's in green tea, all the plant flavonoids that help to nourish our bodies, our minds. So it's more than what you think it is. So take it in. Drink phyto-infused water throughout the day. We need at least 2 to 3 liters of water a day. Here are some recipes on how to kind of jumpstart that 10 to 12 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. We can make a fiberlicious chia pudding. We can do a belly-supporting fruit puree. We can, this is the mixture to create that mucilaginous layer that's going to nourish our microbiome, mucin layer, and then oatmeal is also another opportunity to get in lots and lots of plants. Yes. Yes, we can even do it in our eggs in the morning by adding more vegetables and onions and garlic. And then, of course, the spices. Don't forget the avocado. Sprinkle the spices on all meals generously. Food diversity leads to plant food diversity leads to microbiome diversity. I want to invite you to an event that is happening with me in the Adirondack Mountains at the Bark Eater. We are going to do a cleanse and breathwork retreat the last weekend of April. So feel free to reach out about that. And there's the Body Mind Restoration Retreat where we do raw vegan food there, and it's a cleanse. There's also yoga, there's also meditation. It's a great microbiome tune-up. And then if you want a macrobiome tune-up, you can come with us and learn how to build cob homes. They're made out of sand and clay and straw. And then there's that good organic homemade plaster. This is nourishing to both the microbiome and the macrobiome. So we know that food is information. We know that every choice that we make is information to our genetic code, and we can decide which way we're going to tip the scales. We know that diversity is key. And we want to honor diversity in all of its appearances, plants, animals, people. Let's take a deep breath and have a cup of tea, maybe. Yeah.
Dr. Crystal Dawn, thank you so much for sharing your 5 R's and your time and such a information-rich presentation with us. There are so many questions in the chat box.
You choose them. Let's go.
Yeah, so a few questions with our remaining time. There's a few that were asked a few times by different people, so I'll prioritize this. If you cannot afford all organic, can you prioritize which foods to purchase? And someone else asks, since organic food is unfortunately not accessible to most folks in the US empire, how do you propose people with lower incomes adopt these nutritional practices?
Thank you for asking that question. That's very important. So I didn't get to go off on my glyphosate, rant, but it's important that if we can't do organic, then we at least do GMO free. And we have the farmers market. We sometimes at the farmers market, they say we're not organic, but we're no spray. So that's a better than choice. Also, there is a website, what is it, like the Clean 15 and which are those 10 vegetables that if you have to save money, and there was a link to it in one of the slides, that you can look and see which of the vegetables are okay to consume, are less likely to give you, are healthier to consume if they're not in fact organic. So there was a link in those slides too, that I think it was the Organic Consumer Agency, but it's in the slides. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll dig through those slides. And does the sugar substitutes removal include the stevia plant?
Stevia is okay.
Stevia is all right. Okay.
Stevia is okay. Get the green stevia though. All right, those white powders, yeah, no, yeah. Get the green stevia. Better still, get your stevia plant and grind it yourself. Yeah, and also for those that are having a hard time finding organic or affording organic, maybe they can grow their own.
Are whole spices better to use than ground for fiber content?
It's better to grind your own spice right then and there if you can, with just a mortar and pestle. That's the best way to get the fiber content and to have the nutrients preserved. That's the best way. That's the better than. Yes. So we always do a better than. We can't be perfect, right? And so we just do better than. And so maybe, we kind of, maybe we kind of figure, okay, well, the orange has a peel. It's not organic, but it's probably better that I get a not organic orange than a not organic apple, so to speak, because, the peeling is much thinner there. So yeah, so we do a better than. Yeah.
I love the better than option. What happens to the microbiomes of food we consume when we cook it? Also fermented foods if cooked, such as miso or heating kimchi.
Right. So microorganisms perish at like above 120 degrees. So even when we're dehydrating our herbs from our garden, it's better to just hang them up. Or if we put them, in my opinion, if we want to preserve the microbiome, we want to go low heat. So for me and miso, I stir it in after my broth has cooled a little bit, right before I'm going to eat it. If you cook it, you're going to cook the microbes. So yeah, so I kind of stir it in right at the end when it's about the temperature that I can take it in my mouth. Then I stir in a spoonful. Yeah.
Great. And then one final question to wrap us up with your presentation. What are your thoughts on eating culturally appropriate foods, that is, foods that our genetic heritage evolved eating based on what was locally available?
Yes. So by all means, eating food that is locally available and in season is a better than choice. Yes.
All right. Dr. Crystal Dawn, thank you so much for sharing your informative, inspiring, and rich information with all of us. And check out the chat box. And everyone, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for your participation. And I'm going to do a final share for us. All right, so thank you everyone so much for taking the time to attend this spring session of the Free Herbalism Project sponsored by Mountain Rose Herbs. If you registered and logged in via Zoom, then you'll receive an email with a recording of the event and an exclusive promo code for, I believe, 15% discount with Mountain Rose. If you have, please give us about 3 weeks to send out that email. And if you want to continue your herbal education, please visit the Mountain Rose blog and subscribe to the Herbal Radio podcast and check out our YouTube channel. And the Mountain Rose Herbs Journal should be going out around May. So sign up for that if you're not receiving that already. And please keep in contact with the speakers if you have questions for any of us. All of our contact info is on here. So for me, Jiling, you can find me at jilinglin.com, and on Facebook and Instagram, Mimi Hernandez at herbalnightschool.com, and on Facebook as Herbal Night School, and Dr. Crystal Dawn Silas on Facebook as Dr. Crystal Dawn, and on Instagram as well. For our upcoming Free Herbalism Project events in person, please join us in Eugene on June 12th, coming up in a few months, and online for another Free Herbalism Project this autumn. And I think that's it for this time together. And same as the invitations from Mimi and Dr. Crystal Dawn, I invite you to just take a moment and take a deep breath and savor what has been shared over the past few hours together. And I hope that you're able to ground this wisdom into your body and into your relationship with plants and other people and the place, the landscape of your community, and take this home with you, digest it, ingest this beauty into your personal microbiome on the physical, mental, and all dimensions. And happy spring. Thank you so much for joining us today. Farewell.
Hey, babe.